let's continue with that. We're just talking about the credibility of the conference and how damaging these court rulings are to the credibility of the NEC. Talk to us about that.
Look, there is no doubt that any member of the ANC would feel like at this stage things don't augur well for them. And there is serious reputational damage that is inflicted on the body and the soul of the ANC. And there would be those who would have no reason to believe that it could be smooth sailing tomorrow and Sunday. For as I said earlier on, I think there would be people on the ground who would say, there are people inside this hall who ought not to be here, and there are those outside who should have been here. Based on that, can we proceed? And there would be those who may stand up and say, in terms of Article X or Z of our own constitution as the African National Congress, we haven't done A, B, C, D. So I see challenges, serious challenges, and I wouldn't even be surprised if it could be pushed to a point where it may collapse. For all, cumulatively, all the decisions taken seem to favor one faction. The numerical strength of the winners favor one faction, and the other faction may have enough reason not to want to proceed.
You know, Prof, while we speak of reputational damage there, we hear that the ratings agencies and of course the markets, everybody's focus is looking at the current, the upcoming NEC. Don't you think though it is time that these bodies actually started looking elsewhere to gauge the country's improvements? Because what we're seeing right now can't be something to gauge on the improvement of the country.
Yeah, at the same time, perhaps they must also be circumspect, lest they are seen to be trying to influence the outcome of the progress, and also to influence policy, because it's not only today. And I think they need to create some distance. I don't know much about them, but I have a sense, based on my reading, my listening, and my interpretation, that maybe they should create some reasonable distance and allow the ANC, the ruling party, and the people of South Africa to do what is in their best interest. But at the same time, they too must be allowed space to do their job to the best of their abilities.
Absolutely. Prof, let's now look at the front runners now, namely Dlamini Zuma and of course Ramaphosa. Let's look at each of them and look at what makes them a viable or qualified candidate, so to speak, to lead the party and ultimately the country. What can you tell us about each of these two, Prof, starting with the pros and cons for each?
Look, let me start with Madam Nkosazana Zuma. I've got immense respect. She's capable. She's a consummate administrator. Humble, dedicated, people-centered. And for one thing I'll take with me to my grave is a contribution to the quality health of the people of South Africa, stopping smoking or discouraging smoking. I think that is a legacy that will forever be a shining spot on her CV. In all the ministries she was assigned to, I think she did pretty well. Where I have a concern and some doubts and I'm not able to pass judgment, and I would say the jury is out, is in her stint in the Organization of African Union, in the AU. Simply because even the appraisal from outside suggests that she was seen to be more focused on what was going on in South Africa than in Africa itself. And I've come across many commendable or rosy commentaries on her performance as far as that goes. But coming to Ndate Ramaphosa, he also, like Nkosazana, have a very colorful pedigree. They've been there, die in the wool. They've acquitted themselves in areas the ANC assigned them. Here, and indeed, both of them are not perfect. If you like, somebody might argue against me and say, but you deliberately forget that the first scandal to come in South Africa under the new dispensation was Sarafina. If you remember the place Sarafina and what happened there, I think she wouldn't want to be reminded of that. But equally, somebody might say, oh, by the way, Mr. Buffalo Man, there is something called Marikana, that unfortunate episode with I regard as a first monument of shame for post-South Africa, post-independent South Africa. But again, Ramaphosa, administrator, businessman, politician, I think both of them are fairly good and strong. The only disadvantage that weakens Nkosazana Zuma, I think, is the surname she carries. For me, it is an albatross. It's a millstone. And that the former husband went out of his way to endorse her. I think he lacked the moral integrity and the political astuteness and acumen not to do so. And I think it was realized belatedly that ought not to have been the case. But again, somebody might say, Lisiba, why don't you say same about Ramaphosa, who prematurely announced his winning team, right? So they both have flaws, but on the balance of probabilities, I think given the court decisions of today, Ramaphosa has good enough reason to smile. And I'm sure his factions, indeed, I would say they have reason to smile. But still, let's wait for the final call. The fat lady hasn't sung yet.
All right, but Prof, why do you think then Dlamini Zuma seems not to be the preferred candidate? And do you think it's solely because of that reason of the surname and who she was married to? Because we also do know that the thorn in Ramaphosa's side, of course, we do know about the Marikana saga. And of course, we do know that not long ago, he was the one that said he didn't even want to venture back into South African politics. So a lot of people are saying, well, why now? Why does he feel like this is the time for him to shine and going strongly for the top spot?
Yeah, look, again, like I said, he's not an angel. I mean, I have issues with him as well, right? He out of political expediency, he chose not to comment when he should have. Let's a crazy story was quiet. And then when others attack him on that you are being politically opportunistic, you can't say they are wrong, right? He ought to have spoken out. You know, the greatest measure of a man is when, at the time when his own interests are at stake, yes, but he still says, in the interest of the greater good, yes, I proceed, the consequences notwithstanding. Those are the men and women I've known that they've left greater legacies than those who are informed by the expediencies of the day. But that notwithstanding, I still think it is not sufficient reason for him not to carry the day. Madam Zuma also, right? I think, you see, there are things here. I'm in Africa, by the way, right? And I'm a senior student of political science and philosophy. Ethnic extraction counts a lot in Africa. Tribalism, ethnicity play a major role in politics. That there was a Xhosa in the office, as head of state, that there was a Zulu as head of state, right? And that there is a possibility that a vendor can come in. Please don't undermine that, not only in terms of African politics and contestation. So there are those who say, yes, the Ngunis have had their time, and indeed a Zuma family has had its time.
Yeah.
Some are telling me, are you ready to have another Zuma for another 10 years? Then therefore the Zuma family would have ruled this country for 20 years. These are some of the things, her credentials notwithstanding, that are working against her.
Prof, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for that sound analysis. I was just going to ask you to give advice to the ANC because it seems like things are just not going their way at this time. But of course, we are out of time. But thank you so much for, as usual, that sound analysis. That is political analyst Professor Prof Tefo joining us from our Pretoria studios. And he was just giving us his views, as of course, with regards to the latest developments in the court cases. And of course, the NEC that kicks off this weekend. I'm back on top of the hour with a fresh round of news.